Hey everybody, what is going on? Hexlex here with another Master Duel video for you guys. Today in this video, I am bringing back an old favorite of not only, I think, yours. I mean, these videos tended to get pretty good responses before, but mine as well, and that is going to be Tri-Brigade Lyrilusc, aka good old Bird Up. It's been a while since I've gotten to say that, because it's been a while since I've played this deck. Yeah, last season, I was really busy learning Adamantipator's, and also doing the normal rare festival, so I didn't really get as much time as I wanted to come back to good old Bird Up and get some more games in with it. But however, since we were able to climb really quickly this season, I have a lot of time now to just mess around with whatever decks I want to, and Bird Up is definitely pretty high up on the list of decks that I want to mess around with. So we are going to start with that. In addition, we recently crafted our third Forbidden Droplet, which, as I mentioned in my Season 3 deck profile update, I was really eager to add a third Droplet to this deck, and it has indeed performed fairly well. We've made not only the change to add this droplet, but a couple of other minor changes to this deck as well. A total of 3 card difference from this iteration and the last one. But of course, as I've mentioned in the past, even a very small difference in a deck list of only a few cards can make, like, completely change how the deck plays, potentially. I mean, it's not going to completely change how our Bird Up deck is going to play, but it's definitely going to open up new lines and, more importantly, new ways to handle disruption. So let's go over the card, or the deck card by card, and then we'll talk a little bit not only about the changes that we've made, but about the deck itself. As always with these like deck profile updates, I like to, as opposed to gameplay videos where I'm just like, here's the deck, now let's get into games. With deck profiles, I like to get a bit more into like, okay, here's what the deck is all about. So we're going to do that here as well. But first, as I said, let's go through the list card by card. First off, we have 3 Lyrilusc Cobalt Sparrow, 2 Lyrilusc Sapphire Swallowtail, or no, just Swallow, 3 Lyrilusc Turquoise Warbler, 3 Tri-Brigade Nerval, 3 Lyrilusc Barrel Canary, 2 Lyrilusc Celestine Wagtail, 3 Maxi, 1 Tri-Brigade Keros, 1 Tri-Brigade Kit, 3 Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, 3 Tri-Brigade Fractal, 1 Mist Valley Apex Avian, 1 Nibiru, the Primal Being, 1 Harpy's Feather Duster, 1 Lightning Storm, 3 Lyrilusc Bird Call, 1 Fire Formation Tenki, 2 Call by the Grave, and 3 Forbidden Droplet. That's going to do it for the main deck. Now down here in the extra deck, we have 1 number F-Zero Utopic Future, 2 Lyrilusc Recital Starling, 1 Lyrilusc Assembled Nightingale, 1 Lyrilusc Ensemble Robin, 1 Downward Magician, 1 Divine Arsenal Zeus Sky Thunder, 1 Salmon Great Almirage, 1 Ancient Warrior's Oath Double Dragon Lords, 1 Tri-Brigade Ferrijit the Barren Blossom, 1 Racefulgur the Desperate Doom Eagle, 1 Simorgh Bird of Sovereignty, 1 Access Code Talker, and then finally 1 Tri-Brigade Shurug the Ominous Omen. So, let's talk a little bit about this deck. So, how do we win with this deck? Well, it's pretty simple. It doesn't seem simple, that's why I hesitated to say simple, but it is actually relatively simple. Basically, the idea is that we have a combo line where we can first make our Recital Starlings, overlay them into F-Zero Utopic Future, and then into Utopic Draco Future. From there, we can use Nerval, as well as a bunch of stuff we sent to Grave to make our Simorgh Bird of Sovereignty, which during the end phase will let us summon our Apex Avian, adding an Omni Negate to our board. And then finally, we can use a Barrel Canary at the end to get back a Sapphire Swallow in order to make Ensemble Robin, which can bounce 1 special summoned monster back to the hand pretty much per material when they're summoned. It's not once per turn. And you can actually get this up to 4 materials pretty easily. Like I said, the main way to make it is summon Barrel Canary and attach Sapphire Swallow. Sapphire Swallow's effect will let you attach a Lyrilusc monster in your graveyard. You'll attach either a Warbler or a Sparrow, whichever is left in your grave. And then from there, Celestine Wagtail has an in-graveyard effect where you can attach it to a material. So from there, that makes a total of 4 materials on Ensemble Robin. So ideally, that is going to be your ideal turn 1 ending board, right? Is going to be the Utopic Draco Future, the Ensemble Robin with 4 materials, the Simorgh, and then the Apex Avian for the Omni Negate as well. So this deck actually doesn't play much like Trizu at all, to be honest. It actually, even though they might seem very similar because they both use the Tri-Brigade engine, and we see a lot of familiar faces in the extra deck, like, you know, Zeus, Almirage, Double Dragon Lord, Ferrijit, Racevolger, Access Code Shurig. This deck actually plays very differently than Trizu does. I would very much say that, like, Tri-Brigade Zoodiac is a mainly Tri-Brigade deck that features a Zoodiac engine, whereas Tri-Brigade Lyrilusc is very much a Lyrilusc deck, mainly, that also happens to feature a Tri-Brigade engine. So that's the best way to think of the deck there, in my opinion, is to remember that our main combos are actually going to be with the Lyrilusc monsters. Important thing to know when you're comboing with the Lyrilusc monsters is particularly about Barrel Canary. When you're bringing something back from grave with Barrel Canary, for the rest of the turn you can only Xyz summon from the extra deck. You cannot special summon any Link monsters from the extra deck after you have activated Barrel Canary's effect. So if you're going to be, you know, getting out your Simorgh to get out Apex Avian during the end phase, literally any Link summoning you want to do, just make sure you do it before you summon Barrel Canary. That is going to be very, very important there. As far as the spell lineup in this deck and the other, like, you know, non-combo cards, of course we've got the Maxis and Ashes for Disruption. Oh, and then also I meant to mention about the Tri-Brigade stuff. Since we're not as focused on the Tri-Brigade engine, that's why we're only playing one of each kit in Chaos. We're still playing 3 Fractal, because Fractal can not only set up our Tri-Brigade line, but can also send a Cobalt Sparrow to grave, which you can then get back with Turquoise Warbler, or even Barrel Canary, just depending on what your hand looks like. So it's pretty much like a Foolish Burial for this deck. So we're playing just the one tanky because Fractal is our only target. And it's better, in my opinion, than Foolish Burial, because anything you'd want to Foolish, you can send with Fractal anyway. And this adds more Tri-types to your graveyard and also gives you more variety of plays than just Foolish Burial would. So we are still playing 3 Nerval as well, because Nerval is a level 1 winged beast and can as such be searched with and used to make the Lyrilusc monsters as well. But yeah, like I was saying, as for the non, you know, sort of combo pieces, we've of course got 3 Maxi and 3 Ash. I mean, let's face it, if you want to win going second ever in Master Duel, you pretty much have to have 3 Ash and 3 Maxi in your deck. I'm playing a Nibiru. I was playing a DD Crow instead of Nibiru. We'll talk now a little bit about the changes that I've made between the seasons here. This is the first one I made. It was like my flexible tech spot, right? I was playing DD Crow initially in that flexible tech spot because it's not only a decent hand trap, but it's also a level 1 winged beast in itself, so it can potentially be used as part of comboing. Like, I've had hands where you normal summon DD Crow, and then since you control winged beast, now you can special the Sapphire Swallow, and then with Swallow Cobalt Sparrow in your hand, and then boom, as soon as you've done that, now you can just start comboing off. So DD Crow in some niche situations, relatively niche situations, can be a combo enabler. Also, being a level 1 winged beast is searchable with stuff like Swallow or Sparrow and Recital Starling. So if you already have all the combo pieces you need and you've got extra searches, it's nice to be able to search a hand trap as well. But ultimately, I decided to go into Nibiru because, as I've discussed in previous videos, we're seeing an increase, especially towards, like, not even towards the end of, throughout the entirety of Season 3, we just started seeing increases in play of Drytron and Virtual World and Adamancipator, all of which special summon a whole lot. And as I've said many times now, it's actually a recent thought I've had that I've just been saying in a lot of recent videos because I feel it is kind of an important point to make. At least I do. I feel that way anyway. It's that if you're playing Maxi, right, it's nice to have something to go into if your opponent decides to take the quote-unquote Maxi challenge, right? If it's your opponent's second turn and you activate Maxi, they might just be like, well, okay, I just have to go for game now. I'm just going to special summon a lot, let my opponent draw a lot, and go for game. And in that kind of scenario, like, you know, let's say we don't have a Nibiru, it's like, well, okay, if they Maxi and start going off, like, what here can we draw into that's going to actually stop our opponent from killing us? Maybe Ash to maybe stop a part of a combo, but, like, otherwise there's really not anything. So that's why I think in most decks, not every deck can find room for it, but I think in the vast majority of decks that are playing 3 Maxi, they should probably be playing 1 Nibiru to have something to punish your opponent for trying to kill you through Maxi. Again, we can draw all the cards in the world, but if we're going to die, that's not going to do us any good. So that is why I like having Nibiru in most decks, like I said, but that's also why I included it in this deck, because I was not previously running Nibiru. I think this card's actually pretty underrated in this format, honestly. Maybe not underrated, maybe that's not the right word. I don't think as many people are playing it as probably should. Not like I'm saying everybody should have one Nibiru in addition to your 3 Maxi and Ash. That's not what I'm saying at all. But I do think there is a somewhat significant portion of the player base, maybe, I don't know, and by significant I mean like maybe 10%, I don't know, I'd have to actually really do the math and think about it, but I think there is a sizable portion of the player base that should be playing Nibiru that are not, so that's just my 2 cents on the matter. Playing one of each Harpies and a Lightning Storm. One of the Lightning Storms is actually one of the cards I took out. I took out the second Lightning Storm to add in the 3rd Droplet. And the main reason I did that is because I was starting to notice that Lightning Storm was becoming a dead draw. It's really only good going second in this deck. And even though we're only playing 1 Tenki, it does still come up occasionally, often enough that, you know, if you're playing 2 Lightning Storm, or I mean, if you're playing Lightning Storm and you've got Tenki out, you know, obviously you can't activate your Lightning Storm. You've got to first take care of the Tenki. I mean, sure, we can Droplet away the Tenki, but against like stun decks, especially, you know, our opponent doesn't always have a monster for us to negate with Droplet. So it's not always guaranteed that we can send the Tenki to then use the Lightning Storm to get rid of their back row. Plus, you know, the second Lightning Storm, like, really is more for, like, the flexibility of also being able to take care of problem monsters that are on the board. But since we're playing 3 Droplet, now monsters on the board are not as much of a problem. Plus, let's be real, a lot of the problem monsters that stop us from making plays, looking at you, Harold, were summoned in defense mode anyway, so Lightning Storm really isn't effective against them in that regard. So that's why I took out the second Lightning Storm for the 3rd Droplet. Like I said earlier, I've been eager to get a 3rd Droplet in this deck, and it has been testing fairly well. The other change that I made to this deck was that I actually took out 1-for-1, and I put back in a 3rd Cobalt Sparrow. I was running 2 for quite a while with 1 copy of 1-for-1. However, I'm not a huge fan of 1-for-1, to be honest. I don't think it's bad in this deck, and I don't even think it's wrong to play it at all. And if you look at the stats on Vaster Duel meta, I think it's 53%. I just looked earlier tonight. I'm pretty sure it was 53%. So it is a slight, you know, slightly more people than not are playing 1-for-1. My whole thing with 1-for-1, I kind of have 2 issues with it. One is that it tends not to enable plays that you didn't already have access to. Like, there is the occasion where you can 1-for-1 and special summon a Sparrow, and then from that search you actually have the means to go off, but it's not really that common of a scenario. And the other thing too is that obviously literally every deck is playing 3 Ash. Like, literally every single deck is playing 3 Ash. Like, some decks aren't playing Max C, but every deck is playing Ash. And 1-for-1 feels really, really bad when it gets Ash. Like, there's no way around it, because you have to discard a card. So, you know, you play 1-for-1, you discard a card. Like, if it's turn 1, you play 1-for-1, you discard a card, they Ash it. Now you only have 3 cards left in hand to make plays with. And if you're trying to activate 1-for-1, you probably didn't have that many plays anyway. So, it feels bad when it gets negated. So that's another reason I didn't like it. And I just put back in the 3rd Sparrow just so you would draw it more often, or so we would draw it more often, and just so that we would have more live plays in the opening hand. Since, yeah, we don't have the extra 1-for-1 there, so. Okay, I think that covers just about everything I wanted to talk about with the build. Let's go ahead and take a look at some games here. These are going to be some replays. I have actually some live gameplay coming up in the very near future that I've actually already recorded for this deck, so it is for sure going to happen. I actually streamed it while I was recording it, which is a practice I think I'm going to start doing. So I've got links to my Twitch and my Twitter in the description down below. If you want to catch some of those streams, those are going to be a bit more impromptu as opposed to my regular Friday night streams. But yeah, if you want to catch those, then definitely follow the Twitch and Twitter there. I'll always tweet. I try to tweet at least an hour out of my, you know, again, more impromptu streams. So yeah, definitely keep your eyes peeled there at those links. Again, those are going to be in the description. So, okay, let's go ahead and watch some games with this updated build. Okay, so this first game we're going to be taking a look at, we're actually going to be playing against Sky Strikers. And we get the first turn, which is very, very nice. So we're going to lead with Fractal here. We can actually set up a pretty standard combo here, which is why I wanted to lead with this game, so that I can show you what a kind of standard combo looks like. I might actually I've been thinking about remaking some of the older combo guide videos I've made because my video quality, both in terms of like the audio as well as my personal skill, have improved since I last made those. So let me know in the comments if you want to see that. But in the meantime, this first game is a good example of what a good opening combo looks like, right? So we use the Fractal to send the Cobalt Sparrow from our deck to the graveyard. Like I said in the deck profile, using Fractal is a bit of a foolish. Now we're going to special summon Warbler from our hand. Warbler's effect lets us summon the Sparrow. Our opponent actually has an effect failure here to negate Sparrow Surge, but since we already have a Sapphire Swallow in our hand, that's not really going to matter. Just know that if our opponent hadn't had effect failure, we would have wanted to search the Sapphire Swallow here with the Sparrow's effect. But again, we already have it, so this failure actually does not impede us in any way. We're then going to overlay these two into the Recital Starling here. And I will admit, I do make a bit of a misplay here. It's actually, I don't know if it's a misplay. I do a bit of a weird line as opposed to how you might normally want to do it. Normally, I think you should add Tri-Brigade Nerval here with this search, but I don't know, I guess I was just being a bit absent-minded. I added Celestine Wagtail instead, but it's actually not going to matter, like I said, because we're just going to use the Wagtail with the Swallow, no big deal. Since we summoned Wagtail, we get to add the Lyrilusc Bird Call. So normally what you would have wanted to do, though, there, is you would have wanted to use this Recital Starling to search Nerval, then special the Swallow with the Nerval, and then use Nerval's effect, right, to go banish these two to go into Tri-Brigade Farigite. And then now you search the Wagtail, and then you're able to special the Wagtail with the Farigite, and then you can add the Bird Call that way. And then we're going to Bird Call for the Beryl Canary. So we still kind of end up in the same place. We're just not going to end up using the Farigite here. We're just going to normal summon the Nerval instead, which is, again, not that big of a deal. We're actually going to end up with the exact same end board we would have with the like standard variant of the combo anyway. So we're going to overlay those two Starlings into F-Zero and then F-Zero Draco Future. We're now going to normal summon the Nerval, banish 3 from grave in order to summon Simorgh, Bird of Sovereignty. Now, like I mentioned in the deck profile, we're now at the stage where we're done link summoning, so we're going to use Beryl Canary, so we can only see summon from here on out. We're going to Beryl Canary for Swallow. Ordinarily, if I'd only banished 2 instead of 3 from grave, summoning Farigite instead of Simorgh directly, like I mentioned earlier. Oh, and then by the way, you summon the Simorgh by linking the Farigite and the Nerval. That's how you get the Simorgh out. But yeah, normally I would have banished 2 cards instead of 3, so normally I would have another bird to grab here with the Sapphire Swallow to make the 4 material Ensemble Blue Robin, but we still have the Nerval on board, so we can just use that to make our 4 material Ensemble Blue Robin. Like I said, we're going to end up with the exact same end board in this scenario that we would have with the, again, more standard variant of the combo line, but that's all going to be good. So yeah, during the end phase, we get Apex Avian. So as you can see, we've got an Omni Negate with Apex Avian, we've got a Monster Effect Negate, and it can actually steal control with number F-Zero Utopic Draco Future as well, and then we can bounce back up to 4 special summoned monsters with Ensemble Blue Robin. So that's really nice. And this is the ideal turn 1 board you want to end on. My opponent's going to lead with a Desires here. I'm definitely going to respond by ashing it. I don't want my opponent to get more advantage to work with. Now here's an interesting thing. My opponent's going to call by, right? And when my opponent called by, I actually stopped and thought about this for a while. Like, I thought about, do I want to negate this call by with Apex Avian? Now, it might seem like a pretty easy decision to actually say, no, I don't want to negate my Mist Valley, or I don't want to negate the called by with Mist Valley Apex Avian. What if they have something like a Lightning Storm? I need to be able to negate that. But here's the thing, right? If this Pot of Desires resolves, it's going to be more likely that they have something like Lightning Storm, or something they can combo off with. And that's going to make, especially with drawing multiple cards in addition to the 3 cards they already have in hand, that's definitely going to make the singular negation of Apex Avian not quite as effective. However, if I do Apex Avian here and negate the called by, then I can stop them from adding more resources to their hand, which in turn will make me, more likely, it'll give them less to work with. It'll make it less likely that they have the Lightning Storm. Plus, I thought about it a lot here. I actually did stop and think about this play for quite a bit when I was playing live, but yeah, I realized too, like, okay, even if they have Lightning Storm, my F-Zero Utopic Draco can't actually be destroyed by card effects. So, like, worst case scenario, I'll still have this Monster Negate and effect, or Monster Negate, effect negating and stealing, abilities. So that should still be enough to cut my opponent off from whatever they're able to do. So I am actually going to use Apex Avian to negate the call by here. I do think it does end up being the right decision in this scenario. So they don't have a response, which is obviously pretty good. We're going to negate their called by, which is going to allow our Ash to resolve, which will in turn negate their desires. And so now they only have 3 cards in hand. They sure enough do have the Lightning Storm, which is a little bit annoying, but all it got rid of was our Simorg and our Ensemble Robin. We get to keep the number F0, and now our opponent's only got 2 cards left in hand. So we've got a 3000 beat stick that can't be destroyed and can negate a monster effect and take control of it, and our opponent has to play through that with only 2 cards in hand. Not only that, Ensemble Robin, by being destroyed, lets us wheel the Beryl Canary back to our hand, in addition to the Nerval Search from being sent to the graveyard as a material as well. So we get to restock our hand. Even if our opponent is able to somehow make significant plays through our Utopic Draco, we still have plays of our own following up on the next turn. And of course, we also had our own Lightning Storm, so had they cleared us, we still would have been fine. So, yep, that is a pretty good example of a standard, we'll say an ideal. How an ideal Tri-Brigade Leaderless game goes when we are going first. It goes pretty much exactly like that. So, okay, let's take a look at some more gameplay here. Alright, we've got our next opponent here. This opponent's actually playing a Synchron deck featuring a lot of the new Stardust Synchro stuff, so that's pretty cool. Always neat to see the new decks in action. Of course, we've got an Ash, so we're going to negate some of that action here. They're going to lead with tuning. I definitely want to negate that because it tends to be better to negate early searches, especially searches that come with additional effects. Like, this tuning also comes with a free mill, which 1 mill off the top doesn't seem like a lot, but there's a lot of stuff they can set up in Grave that'll make their plays live. So, obviously in addition to the search as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and negate it and not even bother with it. Our opponent does actually have the Eschator Dawnwalker, which is a card I didn't realize they'd actually come out with support for the like Inca Synchro archetype, but that's actually pretty cool that they did. So they're going to go ahead and discard the Majestic Dragon, which confirms they are playing the new stuff, to special summon the Fire Ants from their deck. That makes them able to summon a Level 8 Synchro monster. And from there they go into the Chaos Ruler. They'll get the Excavate here, and it's actually a pretty nice one. As you can see, they get to send Jet Synchrons, so that's definitely not bad. 2 Jet Synchrons even. I didn't remember that. I just remember the 1. So they'll add the Caligo Claw Crow here, send the Jet Synchrons, but unfortunately it doesn't seem like they're able to do a whole lot else. Well, unfortunate for them. It's fortunate for me. And again, a lot of the reason they're not able to do more is because we stopped their searches early with tuning. Yeah, like I said, it's generally speaking, there are obviously choke points with decks in certain lines of play, but generally speaking, I think it's better to Ash an early search because it's less likely that your opponent's going to be able to make cohesive plays with what they happen to open, as opposed to if they get even 1 search, they can just sculpt their hand. Based off that 1 search, they can make their hand like all playable, as opposed to, yeah, just having to rely solely with what they open. So, okay, we're going to take our turn here. I'm actually going to go ahead and lead with Kairos here, pitching the Sapphire Swallow, because yeah, we opened with Swallow, Beryl Canary, and Kairos, which is not a great combination of cards to open, because it doesn't really lead to any inherent like lines of play. So I think the only way I'm going to be able to make a play here is by discarding the Swallow for Kairos, so that I can revive the Swallow with Beryl Canary, and then go and basically just go into some minor Xyz plays. I don't have enough to full combo, so what I'm planning on doing here is going into a Symbol Nightingale and setting up a Zeus. Opponent's going to have Maxi, but fortunately we have Called by the Grave, so we don't have to worry too much about that. If we did not have Called by, I think we would just have to stop here. Like, we would summon our Kairos and probably just, in defense mode, and probably just end our turn. Because it would be giving our opponent too many draws, too many opportunities to come back, even if we did set up a Zeus. But since we had the Call by, we don't have to worry about it. We can just go straight into Assembled Nightingale. I'm going to Battle Phase, attack directly, and do it twice for good measure, just because, we can. From there, since we battle with an Xyz monster, well, first we're actually going to overlay into Downward Magician in the main phase 2. This will give us an extra Zeus material, which will allow us to Zeus twice instead of just once, which is obviously really nice. We're going to go ahead and get the Zeus. I'll activate it now just to get rid of the Chaos Dragon, and also because I did check their graveyard before I actually made this play in the actual game, and they do not have another Dark Monster in grave, so they aren't able to bring this back with its effect. They'll Rhoda for Junk Synchron here. That's totally fine. They realize, they can't summon it. I'll just Zeus. So, we'll We'll just leave it at that. I actually did set Droplet here, and the main reason I'll set Droplet sometimes, even if I have like a Zeus out, is in case my opponent draws like an Imperm. You know, they can just slap down Imperm and negate Zeus, and then they're like, okay, cool, now I can make plays. Whereas if I have Droplet, I can at the very least like stop myself from dying. Obviously, I would still rather not sacrifice my Zeus just to negate a monster effect if possible, but if it's going to keep me from losing the game, I'll still do it, so... Alright, we peel Fractal off the top, which is obviously like probably the best single top deck we could have gotten. We'll do the Tri-Brigade line of sending Kit and then Nerval, and then wheeling back into a Fractal. That'll load us up with enough Tri-types in grave in order to be able to summon Sim-Morg, which with Zeus and the Fractal, we'll be able to attack for lethal here. Sim-Morg wanted to get that just in case my opponent, you know, was able to stop me somehow, and then I could set up an Omni Negate with the Apex Avian to keep them from coming back, but obviously they didn't have it, so we were able to win. And yeah, cool. Alright, let's go ahead and look at another game here. Okay, this next game we're looking at is going to be against good old Dinos. Gotta love Dinos. I actually would be down to try that deck if it didn't take me like 9 Ultra Rares to craft. But yeah, opponent's going to actually take the first turn here. They're going to lead with Lost World, and then the Oviraptor. Ooh, excuse me. Fortunately, we do have the Ash here, which is going to prevent them from being able to do much of anything. And also, fortunate for us, they don't have the Michelinosaurus, which would have stopped us from ashing them. So, yep, nothing too scary happening here. They're just going to set a card and then pass back to us. So, it's always nice when the one Ash is actually enough to stop you from just losing. So, I mean, we had Droplet as well. So, even if it had been Drytron or something, we still would have had the out, so that's always nice. We're going to lead with Fractal. You will always want to lead with Fractal, even if you don't necessarily need it, because we want to be able to set up our graveyard and also draw out a potential negate from Ash. Now here, my opponent is actually going to Imperm in response to my activating Kairos' effect, but with this particular line, I really need this Kairos to resolve. Like, I don't even care about the Kairos itself, I just need this summon to go through. So I'm actually going to Droplet here. I'm going to send the Kairos and negate the Oviraptor, even though the Oviraptor isn't a threat in terms of its effect or its attack points. By sending the Kairos to the graveyard, the Imperm now no longer has a face-up monster to negate. So therefore, my Kairos is going to resolve. And again, in this scenario, I don't actually care about the Kairos itself. I just want its effect to resolve. So yeah, there's another way you can actually use Droplet. That doesn't come up very often, but yeah, you can send a monster activating its effect, and then the effect will resolve. So yeah, from here we're going to Ferrijit for Nerval, use Nerval to go into double Dragon Lords. From there I'm going to link those into Racevulgar. It's actually one of the few times I've actually properly linked summoned a Racevulgar, because it takes 2 wind monsters. I mainly just wanted to set up a link 3 in order to go into Access Code Talker, which I'm doing right here. We'll use Access Code's effect to boost its attack. Then from there, I'm going to go into Beryl Canary. Again, that line was a little bit weird, but, you know, once again, I had to do all my link summoning before I actually summoned Beryl Canary with her and used her effect, because then at that point, she locks us into Exceed summoning. But from here, at this point, you know, we Beryl Canary, bring back the Cobalt Sparrow, Sparrow adds Sapphire Swallow, and my plan from there was to then overlay into Recital Starling, add Wagtail, special the Swallow, special the Wagtail, search a spell, search the Bird Call just because I can, then overlay those into another Recital Starling, and then overlay those into number F0, and then overlay into F0 Utopic Draco Future, which not only would have provided the 3000 attack necessary to close out the game, but also would have provided a monster effect negation, just in case, just in case our opponent is somehow running Gores or Tragodia or Battle Fader, which, again, you know, never comes up, but is not, an awful... Ooh, excuse me. It's a little late when I'm recording this. Sorry about that. It's not an awful idea to have it on your radar there. So, okay, I think I've got one more game I can show you before we close out the video here. Okay, last replay for this video is going to be against Domain Monarchs, which I actually haven't run into at all, maybe? Huh. Now that I think about it, have I run into them at all? At all during Master Duel? I actually almost built this deck. The last YCS I played in YCS Houston, I actually played, back in 2016 I played this deck, but yeah, so we actually get to go first here, but our opening hand is very much not a going first hand. There's not a whole lot we can do with just Nerval and Sparrow, and then Ash and Nibiru obviously are only really useful during our opponent's turn, so I'm just going to set the Nerval here. Like, if it dies, cool, I get a search. If it doesn't, that's great. I have a material on board to combo with next turn, potentially, and obviously I'd rather have a monster set than just nothing at all in the event that I might die here, so I'm going to go ahead and Ash this Pantheism just so my opponent does not get more draws, because having played Domain Monarchs and obviously knowing memes about Monarchs in general, like, this deck does tend to be pretty bricky. I get a little worried when my opponent reveals 3 Stormforths here, but then they actually don't do anything with them, which is totally fine with me, but yeah, I don't know, Monarchs just tend to be kind of bricky like that. You either open, like, an insane hand where you can, like, what are their names? You get the big light one and the big dark one with a domain out, or you just, like, don't do anything at all. But fortunately, this was a don't do anything at all for my opponent here. So we top deck Bird Call, which is very, very nice. We're going to go ahead and activate it here. I'm going to add the Swallow and then special summon the Sparrow from my hand. The Swallow lets us add the Wagtail. Now I can special Swallow, special Wagtail, and then from here I can more or less just go into, like, some pretty standard combo stuff. I've already got the Nerval face down, so I can just flip that up and start Link summoning when I need to. I'm going to begin by going, of course, into our Recital Starlings here. Oh yeah, this is a little bit of a weird moment, but I actually just end up adding and then normal summoning Warbler to keep comboing, because, again, I could have flip summoned Nerval, but I don't know, I just decided I wanted the Nerval on board for some reason. I guess now that I think about it, I really should just flip summon Nerval, but it is what it is. Not a big deal either way, so I do want to go into the F-Zero Draco as soon as possible to negate a potential hand trap coming from my opponent, although if they had, like, a Maxi or an Ash, or I think even a Nibiru, they could have activated by this point, so no need to go into all that. Or there's There's not necessarily a need to go into Utopic Draco right away, but it's still better to, I think, than not, so we'll get out a Racehulger here, since our opponent obviously didn't really set up a graveyard at all. And then from there we can set up a Link play with Ensemble Robin, which is enough damage to end up being lethal. There probably were smarter ways I could have set up a lethal board than this, but whatever, this obviously works just fine, so. Alright, that's all the games I got for you. Let's go ahead and move on to the outro. Alright everybody, that is going to just about do it for this video. So yeah, I hope you enjoy the updated Bird Up build, and like I said, there is some live gameplay coming along the way. I have already got it recorded. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I also streamed when I was recording this live footage, which is, again, something I plan on making a regular habit of doing when I record live gameplay. So if you would like to catch one of my more impromptu streams, feel free to follow me on Twitter. On there you will see any updates I give about when I'm going to stream is going to be there. Like I mentioned earlier as well, I will try to give at least an hour notification on Twitter before I go live on Twitch. But you can also just follow me on Twitch as well, and you'll get notified there too, if you would like. So yeah, that is going to just about do it for this one. If you have any suggestions for the deck, feel free to let me know in the comments. I'm always open to them. I love hearing from you guys in the comments, and I actually just said this at the end of the stream I did. The stream and recording I actually did earlier tonight. I mentioned this there, and I've mentioned this in another video, but I feel like it bears repeating because it's so important. Like, it's important to recognize how awesome you guys are. It really, really is. I know I say this at the end of, like, every video, but, like, seriously, I see so many other YouTubers, not even just big ones, sometimes people around my size just, like, complain about how, like, awful comments are, and, like, they never read comments for their mental health, and I mean, sure, there are some comment sections that are not that great, but you guys are not one of those. You guys are awesome. I seriously have, like, one of the best comment sections ever. Like, you guys actually offer the criticism in a way that's constructive, which I very, very much value. You know, constructive criticism, I think, is the backbone of progressing in your work, whether it's a game or an art or, you know, a skill, what have you. I think it's a very important thing is to get that constructive criticism. And you guys are very good about giving it in a constructive way, you know, not a way where it's just like, you suck, you know, like, or whatever. Obviously, that's criticism that's not constructive. That's bad criticism. You guys give great. No, strike that. You guys give excellent criticism. I have learned so much about this game and coming back into it from the comment section. It's like more than half the reason that I even like am able to do as well as I am in this game. It honestly is. You guys are the best. So just wanted to make sure that you guys were well aware of that, how awesome you were before I signed off here, which I am now going to do. So guys, thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. If you're commenting and subscribing, thank you so much. That is very, very awesome, and I very much appreciate it. You know, it's late when I'm mixing up words like this, so let's go ahead and just sign off, and I hope you have a fantastic day.